basically the engine ourselves. And suppose this is a very good beginning. He has given a warning to the world that India has come up. We are now start manufacturing majority of weapons ourselves and critical equipment like engine and all. In near future, we will be able to develop rather than depending on US, Israel, France, or Russia. Now, the question which is coming is why we are now changing from that we used to once upon a time import, now we are trying to export. Because if you have to become a third largest economy in time to come and then become a second largest or try to go even first largest, you cannot import your defense equipment from outside. Your economy has to be so strong that you have to manufacture almost 90% of defense equipment within your country and able to export almost about 30 to 40% of your defense equipment to the world over, earning approximately 10 times what we are earning as on today. And we are on that line. We are on the roadmap. We have already made a milestone for ourselves, and Prime Minister Modi has made it very clear that India is not going to become dependent on other countries on defense equipment. Slowly and steadily, we are going to manufacture almost 90% of our defense equipment within our country, and we will be one of those first 10 countries which will be exporting the defense equipment to the countries world over.
And Ravindra Sachdev, the Prime Minister may not have spoken about tariffs or President Trump, but the messaging was very clear when he said that this government will stand like a wall for our farmers, because that's one sector where the United States has been pushing for as far as the trade deal goes, that they want greater access to India's markets, and that's something where India has drawn the line.
No, certainly, yes. I mean, I think this is a wake-up call for the country. And in our nation's history, I think this is somewhat of a milestone, I would say, right? Because of the various factors which have, converged. And therefore, to my mind, it's not only about the farm, the access to the, agriculture and dairy and GMO sectors, and even data localization. Those are trade issues. I think all of this has gotten layered up with optopolitics, global geopolitics, and India's independent foreign policy, and if we could say interference in our internal affairs, right, by clamping down or sanctions on us for purchasing Russian oil. So this, I think, is a wake-up moment for the country, and Prime Minister was perhaps trying to, nudge that. It's an era when, the nation has to come together, has to work hard. We have to also, improve our productivity, our quality. Our goods should be globally competitive, right? And as General Sivaj has been mentioning as to what all we can, stand up on our own. I mean, the parallel I say is, or the way I look at it, you see, the Koreas and Japans of the world were not built in a single day. They were built with character, strength of character of the nation and hard work. It's a time for India to do that, because that is the message which goes to the world that we are a resilient nation. Okay, we will withstand. Yes, Prime Minister is standing strong. Okay, the nation is standing strong, and the government is taking certain decisions which will, which will accelerate the momentum. And we are, in a way, doing a whole 360-degree re-evaluation of our capabilities and the matrix in which we are. It's a new world matrix which is under construction right now. All nations are scoping out their partnerships and supply chains and various aspects. India is doing that, and it's a wake-up call for us to do it.
But Ravindra Sachdev, there are two aspects to this, isn't it? One, of course, is to push forth our self-reliance. The other is also the kind of narrative that India seems to be building, especially when we have this 50% tariff that's already looming over us, which the United States and the Trump administration says could increase from here on. So that kind of messaging is also important, that you may try to bully us, but we're not going to fall for that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That is the messaging that, we will stand with it. And therefore, we are prepared to pay the cost. We are prepared to sacrifice. And that's where, this national will and hard work and, multiple reforms and all come in. We know we will take a hit. The sanctions or the tariffs, which is 25% now. And, see, the downside would be that because of this Russian oil tariff of 25%, the other 25%, which is the trade tariffs, which were to be discussed, are also paused, right? That's what apparently the US is saying, that first we solve this Russian tariff matter and then we get into the trade negotiations. And depending upon how the meeting turns out with Putin today, we don't know. Most probably the status quo in the war will continue or the conflict. Maybe there'll be a next meeting after a week or two or whatever. So with regards to us, we can probably see the same status quo continuing unless Trump comes out of this meeting and says, okay, now I can reevaluate secondary sanctions on Russia. Putin is working with us, etc. Though I doubt the chance. So we have to look and see that in the future ahead, even in the short term and medium term, we will be facing these tariffs or some percentage. Or then there's the issue of BRICS. Okay, if something happens with BRICS, we'll face that. So the lesson and the moral of the story is that India has to stand up. Now, the challenge is we cannot stand up. We cannot create everything. There is the reality of life and world and economics is that no country can, just be isolated and create everything on its own. We do need to import things. We will need, components of different kinds for each industries.
But that's also a two-way street, isn't it? That if India needs the United States, then the United States needs India as much as well. And David Sofer, I want to get you in on that. If the kind of approach that Donald Trump and his administration has taken continues, and if India continues to stand tall like we have and draw the line on certain things, then for the average American also life is going to get difficult.
Well, I feel that these tariffs are transitory and they are renegotiation tactics as well, as we here in the States continue the American Fair Trade Initiative, in other words, tariffs and negotiations, with a real emphasis on global peace and prosperity. A lot of the stuff has to do with not emboldening Russia at the moment, but a lot of these tactics, we need other countries as well as trading partners and supply chains. So we have similar issues here in the United States as well. At the same time, we are actively and aggressively negotiating to seek fairer terms for American trade and manufacturing and jobs. And again, with the global security, it's also it's a big thing. So it's 50% today and 5% tomorrow. That's the the art of the deal. And in regards to what's happening now with the summit with Putin, we'll have to see how that unfolds. But I think that there will be a lot of info, and I think that America is certainly motivated for peace in that region, and hopefully that will be a lot of alleviation for tariffs and global trade and global stability and supply chain in the region. So we'll have to see how that unfolds. With that being said, there is no, how do I say it? There's no golden bullet in Trump's world, if that makes sense. So there's not. I don't see this as a fast track to the finish line. So this is really a one quarter thing. And like what your other guests were saying, if India decides to bring back manufacturing and supply internally, that doesn't happen overnight. We're talking about GE plants and manufacturing. That is a 3 to 5 year project before that can really come into fruition. So likewise, America has similar issues with supply chain as well. So it's definitely a transitory time when it comes to tariffs and global strength and peace.
But you've been talking about it being free and fair trade practices. That's what Donald Trump and the administration has also been saying, that it has to be fair. But how is it fair that India gets punished with higher tariffs because President Trump's meeting with President Putin does not go well?
Well, in regards to that, India, in all due respects to India, has some of the highest tariffs in the world against the United States.
Sure. So if you want to penalize India because of that, then that's fine. But why do we have Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, who says that these tariffs may go higher if there is no resolution between President Trump and President Putin? That has to do with the ceasefire in Ukraine. What is that going to do with India?
Well, we're actively seeking out peace in the region, and we are trying not to. The administration is actively not trying to embolden the Russians. So, they are using all different sorts of tools when it comes to tariffs. And, what's Russia's biggest power is oil. So, they are trying to do all sorts of things to make Russian oil not attractive to other countries. And so that is one temporary tactic the administration seems to be doing. So, we have to see how this unfolds. It's a lot can happen, especially in Trump world. It's so we have to see how the meetings unfold and how the restructuring and renegotiation of the tariffs unfold as well. In the meantime, yes, I understand that there is short and medium term pain in global markets. Global markets hate uncertainty, and this is no different. So we have to see how it unfolds, and hopefully we can have a clearer picture after this summit of where things are heading for the greater good of the two biggest democracies in the world.
Sure. Major Sivach, I want to ask you this then. Is this just an ego battle perhaps for the US president? On multiple occasions, at least 30 or more, he has claimed that he was the one who brokered peace between India and Pakistan in the aftermath of Operation Sindoor. That's something that India has categorically rejected. Does he feel like he's being snubbed by India because that sort of acceptance is not coming through the fore for his claims, and which is why India is being penalized?
Absolutely. Poonam, see, he's a businessman. He wants a personal glory because he wants that he should be awarded a Nobel Peace Prize for bringing the conflicts in the world to an end. To some extent, he has been successful. He had done quite a bit in Rwanda. Then he has done also in Congo, where the peace has prevailed. Then he claimed that he was also instrument in bringing peace in Cambodia, Thailand, and then very recently he done in Azerbaijan, Armenia. And he's been also claiming that the two nuclear powers, which were almost on the threshold of using nuclear weapon, he brought peace between India and Pakistan. Whereas, and he has claimed not once, he has claimed almost 30 times. Whereas India has made it very clear that why this peace has prevailed or why the ceasefire had taken place was the DGMO Pakistan has requested to DGMO India after we have given them a lot of baiting and they could not sustain after 4 days. So the main concern is that, India was trying to bring out this issue that it is a bilateral issue. It is only the Pakistan DGMO requested to Indian DGMO, and US has no role to play, and Putin has may have influenced it, but he was not directly involved. But this had not been liked by Donald Trump. He wanted to take the credit of India-Pakistan war coming to end to be given to him, which had not been given. I suppose that is where it has hurt his ego. And that's how he, it can't happen that if we are buying oil, the China is buying $62 billion oil. We are only buying $52 billion. What about Turkey, which is also buying almost $28 billion? There are Europe, which is also buying gas and oil.
And the European Union.
US.
And the European Union has been buying from Russia. But David Sofair, this is a fact that the United States has also been importing from Russia, that the European Union has been importing and has trade ties with Russia. And United States just very recently signed a trade deal with the European Union.
So there are tariffs against the EU as well. So that is an ongoing trade negotiation and part of our American fair trade initiative. So that's happening as well. Sure. Now that is being renegotiated as well. So the idea that one country is being singled out is not the case. But what is the case and what's happening here is fast-moving trade deals that ultimately will make...
but it definitely does seem like India is being singled out because China got a 3 months pause because negotiations were on. Now, negotiations are on with India as well, but India doesn't seem to get that concession or that pause. So it does seem like India is being singled out.
It's very important to point out to your viewers as well that the sanctions have not been implemented in India yet as well. So that's happening, and that the negotiations are ongoing.
Sure.
And yes, China, so that's very important. So let's just...
Sure, we still have a fortnight to go before those tariffs kick in. And let's hope that in the benefit of both the countries and the relations between the both countries, that this trade deal is negotiated and these tariffs do come down from a 50% that have been slapped so far. But I am unfortunately completely out of time. I have to leave it there. I thank you, gentlemen, for joining us here on this edition of Brass Tacks. It is time for a quick break, though. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
This is News 18 Network. largest news network.
साथियों, इस दिवाली में आपकी डबल दिवाली का काम मैं करने वाला हूं। इस दिवाली में आपको एक बहुत बड़ा तोहफा देशवासियों को मिलने वाला है। पिछले 8 साल से हमने जीएसटी का बहुत बड़ा रिफॉर्म किया। पूरे देश में टैक्स के बर्डन को कम किया, टैक्स की व्यवस्थाओं को सरल किया और 8 साल के बाद समय की मांग है कि हम एक बार उसको रिव्यू करें। हमने एक हाई पावर कमेटी को बिठा करके रिव्यू शुरू किया, राज्यों से भी विचार विमर्श किया और मेरे प्यारे देशवासियों, हम नेक्स्ट जनरेशन जीएसटी रिफॉर्म्स लेकर के आ रहे हैं। ये दिवाली के अंदर आपके लिए तोहफा बन जाएंगे। सामान्य मानवीय की जरूरतों के टैक्स भारी मात्रा में कम कर दिए जाएंगे। बहुत बड़ी सुविधा बढ़ेगी। हमारे एमएसएमई, हमारे लघु उद्यमी, इनको बहुत बड़ा लाभ मिलेगा। रोजमर्रा की चीजें बहुत सस्ती हो जाएगी और उससे इकोनॉमी को भी एक नया बल मिलने वाला है। मेरे प्यारे देशवासियों, आज देश तीसरी बड़ी इकोनॉमी बनने के लिए शामिल है। तेज गति से आगे बढ़ रहा है। हम दरवाजे खटखटा रहे हैं और बहुत तेजी से हम उसको अचीव भी कर लेंगे। और कोई तो दिन होगा मैं आपके बीच आकर के लाल किले की प्राचीर से ये खबर भी सुनाऊंगा। आज भारत की अर्थव्यवस्था और आर्थिक स्थिति को लेकर पूरी दुनिया आश्वस्त है। इतनी अस्थिरता के बीच आशा की किरण बना हुआ है भारत का फाइनेंशियल डिसिप्लिन, भारत की फाइनेंस की ऊर्जा। संकट के घेरे में जब अर्थव्यवस्था पड़ी हुई है, तब भारत ही उसे बाहर निकलेगा, ये भरोसा दुनिया में पनपा है। आज इन्फ्लेशन कंट्रोल में है, फॉरेन एक्सचेंज रिजर्व हमारे बहुत मजबूत है, हमारे मैक्रो इकोनॉमिक इंडिकेटर्स बहुत मजबूत है। ग्लोबल रेटिंग एजेंसी भी लगातार भारत की सराहना करती हैं। भारत की अर्थव्यवस्था पर ज्यादा से ज्यादा विश्वास व्यक्त कर रही है। ये बढ़ती हुई अर्थव्यवस्था का लाभ मेरे देश के गरीबों को मिले, मेरे देश के किसानों को मिले, मेरे देश की नारी शक्ति को मिले, मेरे देश के मध्यम वर्ग को मिले, मेरे देश की विकास धारा को ताकत देने वाला बने। उस दिशा में हम नए नए प्रयास करें। आज युवाओं के लिए नए नए सेक्टर में हमारे नौजवानों के लिए अवसर बन रहे हैं। स्किल डेवलपमेंट, स्वरोजगार, बड़ी बड़ी कंपनियों में इंटर्नशिप, इस पर एक बहुत बड़े स्तर पर अभियान चल रहा है। साथियों, इस दिवाली में आपकी डबल दिवाली का काम मैं करने वाला हूं। इस दिवाली में आपको एक बहुत बड़ा तोहफा देश।
Welcome back. In Jammu and Kashmir's Kishtwar, at least 60 people, most of them pilgrims, have been killed in a massive cloudburst on the Machal Mata Yatra. More than 100 people are still unaccounted for. Rescue and relief operations are underway, but it is a race against time to reach all those who may be caught under the rubble. My colleague Ishan Wani gets us the special report.
So between all of this destruction, a Shiv Mandir in the middle of the entire fury was able to survive. It's a small temple, though there were other temples which have been completely washed away by the flood. But this Shiv temple miraculously survived. It has cracks have been developed, but on the other side completely destroyed. This side completely destroyed. But in between, this temple survived the nature's fury. And people believe that since there have been praying in these temples for years, there was some divine intervention. That's what the locals are saying, but it's a nature's fury where it's hard to actually assess what really transpired, how things unfolded, and how many survivors are still under the debris. But this is the last parking area, which no longer looks like a parking, but vehicles after vehicles have been destroyed, damaged, and there are ambulances also which have suffered great deal of damage while the floods came down. And now the efforts are being made to ensure that the survivors are taken out from the debris.
That's all we could pack in for you in this edition of Brass Tacks. Thank you so much for tuning in.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
साथियों, इस दिवाली में आपकी डबल दिवाली का काम मैं करने वाला हूं। इस दिवाली में आपको एक बहुत बड़ा तोहफा देशवासियों को मिलने वाला है। पिछले 8 साल से हमने जीएसटी का बहुत बड़ा रिफॉर्म किया। पूरे देश में टैक्स के बर्डन को कम किया, टैक्स की व्यवस्थाओं को सरल किया, और 8 साल के बाद समय की मांग है कि हम एक बार उसको रिव्यू करें। हमने एक हाई पावर कमेटी को बिठा करके रिव्यू शुरू किया, राज्यों से भी विचार विमर्श किया, और मेरे प्यारे देशवासियों, हम नेक्स्ट जनरेशन जीएसटी रिफॉर्म्स लेकर के आ रहे हैं। ये दिवाली के अंदर आपके लिए तोहफा बन जाएंगे। सामान्य मानवीय की जरूरतों के टैक्स भारी मात्रा में कम कर दिए जाएंगे। बहुत बड़ी सुविधा बढ़ेगी। हमारे एमएसएमई, हमारे लघु उद्यमी, इनको बहुत बड़ा लाभ मिलेगा। रोजमर्रा की चीजें बहुत सस्ती हो जाएगी और उससे इकोनॉमी को भी एक नया बल मिलने वाला है। मेरे प्यारे देशवासियों, आज देश तीसरी बड़ी इकोनॉमी बनने के लिए शामिल है। तेज गति से आगे बढ़ रहा है। हम दरवाजे खटखटा रहे हैं और बहुत तेजी से हम उसको अचीव भी कर लेंगे। और कोई तो दिन होगा, मैं आपके बीच आकर के लाल किले की प्राचीर से ये खबर भी सुनाऊंगा। आज भारत की अर्थव्यवस्था और आर्थिक स्थिति को लेकर पूरी दुनिया आश्वस्त है। इतनी अस्थिरता के बीच आशा की किरण बना हुआ है भारत का फाइनेंशियल डिसिप्लिन, भारत की फाइनेंस की ऊर्जा। संकट के घेरे में जब अर्थव्यवस्था पड़ी हुई है, तब भारत ही उसे बाहर निकलेगा, ये भरोसा दुनिया में पनपा है। आज इन्फ्लेशन कंट्रोल में है, फॉरेन एक्सचेंज रिजर्व हमारे बहुत मजबूत है, हमारे मैक्रो इकोनॉमिक इंडिकेटर्स बहुत मजबूत है। ग्लोबल रेटिंग एजेंसी भी लगातार भारत की सराहना करती हैं, भारत की अर्थव्यवस्था पर ज्यादा से ज्यादा विश्वास व्यक्त कर रही है। ये बढ़ती हुई अर्थव्यवस्था का लाभ मेरे देश के गरीबों को मिले, मेरे देश के किसानों को मिले, मेरे देश की नारी शक्ति को मिले, मेरे देश के मध्यम वर्ग को मिले, मेरे देश की विकास धारा को ताकत देने वाला बने, उस दिशा में हम नए नए प्रयास करें। आज युवाओं के लिए नए नए सेक्टर में हमारे नौजवानों के लिए अवसर बन रहे हैं। स्किल डेवलपमेंट, स्वरोजगार, बड़ी बड़ी कंपनियों में इंटर्नशिप, इस पर एक बहुत बड़े स्तर पर अभियान चल रहा है। साथियों, इस दिवाली में आपकी डबल दिवाली का काम मैं करने वाला हूं। इस दिवाली में आपको एक बहुत बड़ा तोहफा देशवासियों को मिलने वाला है। पिछले 8 साल से हमने जीएसटी का बहुत बड़ा रिफॉर्म किया, पूरे देश में टैक्स के बर्डन को कम किया, टैक्स की व्यवस्थाओं को सरल किया, और 8 साल के बाद समय की मांग है कि हम एक बार उसको रिव्यू करें। हमने एक हाई पावर कमेटी को बिठा करके रिव्यू शुरू किया, राज्यों से भी विचार विमर्श किया, और मेरे प्यारे देशवासियों, हम नेक्स्ट जनरेशन जीएसटी रिफॉर्म्स लेकर के आ रहे हैं। ये दिवाली के अंदर आपके लिए तोहफा।
Namaste, Jai Hind, and a very, very happy Independence Day to all our viewers. And on this perhaps Independence edition of Take 3, we will come to the freedom bit towards the end. But there are multiple conversation points. Zaka Jacob, Rahul Shivshankar with me here. And let's start with what the chiefs had to say about Operation Sindoor, and just juxtapose that with what Asim Munir, his guttural utterances, if you were to say, on American soil. So, Zaka Jacob?
So, look, the chiefs, I think the air chief coming out over the weekend and saying that, you know, we hit 5 fighters of the Pakistan Air Force plus another Eland aircraft. This was known. It's just that this is the first time that somebody as high as the air chief has come out and confirmed that. So it sort of corroborates what we had all been reporting on, and you know, it sort of, at least the satellite images were confirming that for a number of months now. So I'm not surprised. I think the Asim Munir comments, obviously everybody is taken aback by it and justifiably outraged by it. I mean, you can't have in this day and age a chief of army staff going on foreign soil, and that to American soil, and saying that, you know, we will bring down half the world if we are nuked and so on. It's complete rabid nonsense. But if you were to peel away the text of what he said and look at what he's trying to get at, I think there's something interesting happening here. And again, it's linked to Operation Sindoor. One of the biggest achievements of Operation Sindoor, in my view, is that this whole idea that because India and Pakistan are nuclear states and therefore, you know, the escalation ladder will be climbed quickly and there are no maneuverable options under the nuclear rung, that has been busted by Operation Sindoor. Because Operation Sindoor has basically shown that, look, there are 4, 5, maybe 10 steps sub-nuclear which a country can take to make the enemy feel pain. This really busts a big pillar of dependence that Pakistan has had. Pakistan, since 1998, since both countries went officially nuclear and became nuclear weapon states, has been using this nuclear bluster at the top end, and at the bottom end they've been using the terrorists, they've been using this bleeding India by 1,000 cuts, but that's underpinned by the fact that they have this nuclear weapon, this nuclear bluff strategy. India has busted that with Operation Sindoor. So if you look at what Munir has said, by, you know, rabble rousing and making such really outrageous and provocative statements, he's once again trying to shift the attention back to this whole nuclear bluster, because he wants to counter what Operation Sindoor did. So while our folks, you know, I'm sure the folks in the foreign ministry and the defense establishment are all paying close attention to what he has said, focus not just on the text and the outrageous and provocative nature of what he has said, but also why he's trying to do what he's doing and not fall for it.
Now, the foreign ministry in Pakistan has tried to de-escalate, and they have tried to say that we will only react, we will never be the first or no first use, and trying to clearly do a line that segues from Asim Munir, but tends to perhaps not upset him too much. But twice in the last 2 months, it's the Field Marshal of the Pakistani army who's being hosted at the White House and who's being entertained and wined and dined, and not the civilian government or the so-called elected government. That in itself is in a statement, a slap in the face, Rahul. But the other thing is, would you want to also read a little more that the more Bharat continues to assert and out the Pakistani bluff, the more perhaps the Americans are getting Asim Munir to try and stand there and jump a little, It's like, your thoughts there?
Yeah, Anand, that's the part that, in fact, concerns more than perhaps the bluster of Asim Munir that we have actually called out. As Zach was saying, we acted under the nuclear threshold and we managed to inflict the kind of damage. This is unprecedented, by the way. No two nuclear powers have gone up against each other, and one has prevailed in almost neutralizing another nuclear power's entire operation and command structure very quickly in a span of 4 days. Some people say hours, depending on what perspective you want to take. But my worry really is the way the Americans have given this person such a wide berth. And if you saw the MEA statement, it actually homed in on that. And it said that India regrets that this individual has been given a stage on American soil under the aegis of a government that is headed by a president who aspires to be a peacemaker globally and wants to win the Nobel Peace Prize. In fact, we were discussing puns on the whole thing and how to put our lines and take a snide dig at Trump. Actually, we didn't need to take a snide dig because the government did the heavy lifting. My concern now is what next? How far is this going to go? The Baluch Liberation Organization, for example, or the BLA as it's called,
Baluch Liberation
Army, and its political wing, both have now been designated terror organizations, which means that any support for a genuine movement seeking the right to self-determination in Baluchistan has been now reduced to an illegal petition.
Terrorist activity.
A terrorist activity. That goes against some of, not that India has ever, sort of taken an overt position. It's debatable whether we should or we shouldn't, this, that, the other. But we don't see that alacrity here on the Indian side. It wasn't as if someone was jumping up in America to brand the Hurriyat a terror entity, even though we have been able to take the various leaders of the Hurriyat to court to establish that they were receiving terror funds and were enablers of a certain kind of narrative, and well as of course underhand sabotage in the valley when it came to our security. So fundamentally there is no equality there. Secondly, there is this overt diplomatic sort of license for Mr. Munir, General Munir. I don't even feel like calling him general because I think he's an obnoxious, to use a word that is being bandied about by Trump, and obnoxious blot really on professional armed forces,
the uniform. He's actually tainted the uniform with his utterances and his behavior. So that's what he's done.
I just call him Munir from where I come from. The fact is that these things will have to be countered, and one of the only reasons I think this is happening is not so much, we're reading a lot into the tariff issue, but I think there is a genuine concern amongst a section of Americans, especially those who make up the MAGA base, etc., being slightly muscular nationalists, that we can't have another China. India is making huge strides, right? We've already asserted our independence. This is beginning to hurt the overt hegemon of the world, the Globocop of the world. They don't want another one to deal with, to be honest. So let's get in there and try to stymie. Let's use various...
But I think, Rahul, there are many within...
And James Rubin has come out.
Yeah.
And, he's not part of their MAGA group.
Correct.
But as I'm saying, there is a core element within the MAGA group that believes this. And unfortunately, now there are other voices that are coming out and saying all the good work we have done over 2.5 decades with India you're flushing down the toilet.
Is it going to be flushed down the toilet? We'll have to wait and watch. But there is also a strong one which also believes that Osama bin Laden or Munir is nothing but a bin Laden in uniform. So, and there are a lot of people who believe that this is being done just so that Pakistan wags its tail, and it's open affront or testimony to the fact that it's the military and the deep state that controls Pakistan, not the elected government. So it's an insult to the Pakistanis. Does it matter to them on ground? Because it's a different situation altogether. But overall, his effort to try and equate himself with India, should India actually stoop down to that level? Just quick thoughts on this before we roll on and move on to the next subject. Or should we just look at the fact that, okay, Trump is going after us, it's only elevating our stature in the world.
Having said all of this, I think we also need to confront some home truths. I think we played Trump wrong. We have to confront that truth and confront that reality.
Okay. Why do you
that
think
our whatever it is, foreign policy establishment, defense establishment, I think they read Trump completely wrong. And dare I say, I think the Pakistanis have played him better than we have played him.
Okay.
And I think evidence of that you can see. I mean, Muni's got the lunch that he wanted at the White House.